Good afternoon, class. This lecture will provide you with an introduction to play therapy. The outline of this presentation is as follows. First, I will be talking about the definition of play therapy. Next, I will be talking about therapeutic factors. What are they? And then I will talk about the historical background on therapeutic factors. Next, I will talk about trans-theoretical models of play therapy. And finally, I will discuss in detail the therapeutic powers of play therapy. What is play therapy? The definition that I took came from the Association for Play Therapy in 1997. They defined play therapy as the systematic use of a theoretical model to establish an interpersonal process wherein trained play therapists use the therapeutic powers of play to help clients prevent or resolve psychosocial difficulties to achieve optimal growth and development. So if we look at this definition, then we can see here that first, there is a systematic use of a theoretical model. As you know, there are many different approaches based on different theoretical models to play therapy. The second element of this definition is that there is an interpersonal process where the trained play therapist will be forming a relationship with the client, with the child. So the interpersonal relationship between the client and the play therapist is crucial to be able to bring about change. The third element in this definition are the therapeutic powers of play. So play itself is considered to have therapeutic powers, especially those that are systematically developed in or utilized in play therapy, that enables the child to resolve his or her problems and psychosocial difficulties and attain optimal growth and development. Let's talk about the therapeutic powers of play. The therapeutic powers of play refer to the specific targeted aspects within treatment in which play initiates, facilitates, or strengthens the therapeutic effect. These powers of play act as mediators that positively influence the desired change in the client. In other words, play actually helps produce change in the child's feelings, thoughts, and behavior during therapy. Play is an integral part of the treatment process, and is not just a medium for applying other change agents. Next, let's talk about the trans-theoretical models of play therapy. The therapeutic powers of play transcend particular models of play therapy. They are supposed to be cross-cutting principles of therapeutic change. However, some play therapists will be interested primarily on the narrow range of change agents underlying their preferred theory. For example, therapists who prefer cognitive behavioral therapy focus on thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. These are consistent with the therapeutic powers of problem-solving skills, role-playing, and self-esteem. However, they do not address others such as the power of attachment. A growing number of play therapists will seek to understand and apply all the multiple change agents in the play therapy sessions they conduct. By adopting a trans-theoretical orientation, play therapists avoid becoming locked into a single theory they can and must apply to all clients in a one-size-fits-all manner. What then are the advantages of using a trans-theoretical approach to play therapy? First, each of the major theories of play therapy has a practical change agent that can increase one's clinical effectiveness. Second, the more therapeutic powers of play in one's repertoire, the better able the play therapist will be to integrate in a prescriptive and flexible way the selection of the therapeutic powers with the best empirical support for treating a particular disorder. Next, With multiple therapeutic powers at their disposal, play therapists can implement an evidence based treatment plan that prescriptively tailors the play intervention to meet the individual needs, symptoms, and preferences of a client and is based on the play therapist's own skills and judgment. The overarching aim of prescriptive play therapy is to individualize a treatment plan so as to answer Gordon Pohl's famous question, what treatment by whom is most effective for this individual with that specific problem, under which set of circumstances, and how does it come about? And finally, therapists who have mastered multiple therapeutic powers can integrate several of them so as to strengthen the impact of a play intervention when the client's psychopathology is complex, multi-determined, and long-lasting. Next, let's look at the major therapeutic powers of play. The first group fall under those that facilitate communication. So these include self-expression, access to the unconscious, direct teaching, and indirect teaching. The next group have to do with those that foster emotional wellness. So under these you have catharsis, abreaction, positive emotions, counter conditioning of fears, stress inoculation, and stress management. The next group have to do with those that enhance social relationships. So under these, you have therapeutic relationship, attachment, sense of self, and empathy. The last group of therapeutic powers are those that increases personal strengths. So under these, you have creative problem solving, resiliency, moral development, accelerated psychological development, self-regulation, self-esteem, and then power and control. Let's now talk about each of the therapeutic powers of play in detail. The first one is self-expression. This is the ability to communicate, and it is one of the most powerful tools we possess. In therapy, it allows clients to express their conscious or unconscious ideas and emotions, and it allows therapists to impart their knowledge and wisdom to clients. Play is the most universal of all languages, and it is used as a form of expression by people of all ages in every country across the world. So, one of the reasons why therapeutic play is therapeutic is because it allows children to express their feelings and emotions in their natural language. Usually, children do not have the vocabulary or abstract thinking abilities that are needed to verbally express their inner world. However, they can readily express their thoughts, feelings, and wishes through their natural medium of expression, which is play. Piaget stated that play provides the child with the live, dynamic, and individual language indispensable for the expression of his subjective feelings, for which collective language alone is inadequate. Next, the power of play is that it allows the child to talk in the third person. Pretend play allows children to talk in the third person, to have dolls, puppets, and make-believe characters express or act out the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that are too difficult or threatening for them to express directly. This symbolic play allows for indirect expression and provides the necessary psychic distance from reality so the child does not become overwhelmed with negative affect or embarrassing thoughts. For example, it is common for child victims of physical abuse to have miniature child dolls being hit by parent dolls and then to have them hitting the parents back. Next, still under self-expression, it provides an as if or not real life quality. Because make believe play is apart from real life, children can express emotions, drives, and thoughts in play that they would not express in real life. Play presents clients with plausible deniability concerning upsetting material, and it permits clients to suspend and, if necessary, to disavow its reality. After all, it's just pretend or a game. Next, the indescribable. At times, we cannot express inner states well in words, but we may be able to depict them better in one of the creative arts such as drawing, dance, or play creations. Isadora Duncan, a well renowned dancer, once said, "If I could say it, I wouldn't have to dance it." A sand recreation, for example, can translate a personal experience into concrete, three-dimensional form. Just as a picture can say more than 1,000 words, a sand scene can express feelings and conflicts for which the client previously had no verbal language. Hence, the sand scenes constructed in the playroom can offer a rich and highly individualized medium for pre-verbal and nonverbal expression. Next, still part of self expression, the intense affective involvement typical of play tends to result in overcoming self consciousness. As a result, children are most likely to inadvertently express things they would similarly ordinarily not express. In the safe, enjoyable environment of the playroom, children are likely to let their guard down and reveal their inner self, both in words and in play activities. And finally, doing while talking. Often, doing something like playing allows a child a level of ease that facilitates talking. The next major power of play, therapeutic power of play, is that it provides us access to the unconscious. Sigmund Freud defined dream work as a mental processes that transform unacceptable unconscious wishes and impulses into acceptable, if often undecipherable, conscious dream images. In the same way, according to Elkind, play work is a parallel mental process and serves as the royal road to the child's unconscious. Interpretation by the play therapist is often needed to decipher the hidden meaning and provide the client with insight into unconscious mental processes. The first unconscious process that we see displayed or manifested in play therapy is projection. Projection is a process in which one attributes unacceptable parts of oneself, such as thoughts, feelings, or impulses, to individuals or play objects. This can be done in either a conscious or unconscious manner. It's a way of believing certain characteristics belong to someone or something rather than taking responsibility for them. The next process or unconscious process is displacement. Displacement in the playroom involves taking out one's frustrations, feelings, or impulses on play objects because they are less threatening. Displacement of aggression is a common example of this defense mechanism. Rather than verbalizing angry feelings toward the mother, a child may spank a doll in the playroom when the child really would like to hit mother for having punished her. The next processes that we often see manifested in play therapy are symbolization, sublimation, and fantasy compensation. So the first one is symbolization. Symbolization means using a concrete thing to represent an abstract concept. For example, using a skeleton to represent death, a volcano to represent hostile feelings, a boat in a storm to represent feelings of vulnerability. The process of symbolization enables one to establish meaningful connections between different realms of experience based on proximity and likeness. Symbols allow us to express that which is inexpressible in words. For example, a school-age boy drew a series of images of parrots with powerful male bodies but weak wings. In real life, the boy was being given adult responsibility but little freedom to make his own decisions or to pursue his own interests. Next, we have sublimation. Sublimation is a defense mechanism that allows one to channel libidinal drives, both aggressive and sexual impulses, into socially acceptable activities such as art and sports. Sand, water, paint, and clay provide excellent ways to gratify unconscious and urethral drives. Cap guns, sparklers, and flashlights can help sublimate fire-setting impulses into socially acceptable play activities. A teenager experiencing difficulty controlling anger or hostile feelings might take up football or kickboxing as a means of finding a useful outlet for such feelings. Finally, you have fantasy compensation. The principle of compensatory activity is familiar to all of us. When one's needs, impulses, and wishes are unfulfilled, one tries to obtain satisfaction through fantasy gratification, such as pretend play, movies, and books. Fantasy compensation is a defense mechanism in which the weak can become strong, the neglected are nurtured, and the poor become rich. For example, a young boy whose father went bankrupt played as if his family lived in a 100-room mansion. The third therapeutic power of play is direct teaching. In direct teaching, the therapist imparts knowledge or skills through strategies as instruction, modeling, guided practice, and positive reinforcement. Children learn and remember best when they are taught in an interesting and enjoyable manner, such as through play activities. When we make learning fun and enjoyable, we increase children's motivation to spend time and effort learning. Studies of children's television shows such as Sesame Street have provided strong evidence of the value of combining learning and play. The best teachers have always tried to make learning fun and enjoyable. When that happens, changes in the chemical balance in the blood have been found to boost the production of the neurotransmitters needed for alertness and memory. John Locke, the eminent British philosopher, once said, "I have always had a fancy that learning might be made like play and recreation to children, and that they might be brought to a desire to be taught, if only learning were proposed to them as a thing of delight and recreation, not a business or a task." Apart from increasing the motivation to learn when play therapist makes a learning task playful, the special qualities of play that foster learning by directive teaching include the following. So one of the reasons why direct teaching is possible in play therapy is that attention is captured. Toys and play materials attract the child and hold a child's attention through their colorful and novel appearance. Only after the play therapist has the child attending and listening can the play therapist teach the lesson. And then there's also sensory input. Young children think and learn primarily through their senses, not by abstract thought. The more senses used in the learning process, such as through three-dimensional play objects, the more the information is retained by the child. Another factor why play allows for direct teaching is because it provides a safe environment. In the safe environment of the playroom, there is no evaluation or fear of failure. So the child can ask questions and take risks during the learning process. Children do not learn well if they feel threatened or stressed. A relaxed, enjoyable learning environment is best for learning. And then there's active involvement. Children tend to actively explore, become involved, and often get deeply engrossed in the play activities. Active, self-initiated learning experiences are more effective than just passively listening to instruction. Still part of direct teaching, play allows for the consolidation of skills. In addition to learning new things, play allows children to practice behaviors already known over and over again. Thus, play can consolidate skill development through repetitive action or practice. The pleasure one gets from repeatedly shooting a basketball through a hoop can lead to solidifying that particular skill. In a similar manner, play helps children learn social skills, assertiveness, and anger control skills by frequently rehearsing them. In play, one can practice a skill without fear of consequences for making a mistake. Another aspect is learning by example. Toys such as stuffed animals, toys, dolls, and puppets can be used to demonstrate and model the adaptive behavior the therapist wants the child to learn. Modeling to enhance problem solving or social skills often involves a coping strategy. Thus, toy models initially display less than ideal coping skills and then gradually become more proficient. The fourth therapeutic power of play is indirect teaching. Play therapists tell stories to indirectly teach children life lessons or solutions to their problems in a way that reduces defensiveness by bypassing the censorship of the ego and superego. Play therapy also allows for catharsis. Catharsis involves the release of pent up negative affects such as anger or sadness. By deliberately expressing a strong emotion, one is likely to experience power over it. In the safety of the playroom, one can verbally or physically express that which would have occurred as a natural reaction to some upsetting experience or unfinished business. The next therapeutic power of play is what you call abreaction. This is a mental process in which repressed memories of a traumatic event are brought to consciousness and are re-experienced with an appropriate release of negative emotions. Unassimilated experiences will keep re-emerging into consciousness so as to accomplish assimilation. Some of the factors under abreaction include miniaturization of experiences. Small toys used to recreate the trauma experiences give children a sense of power over the event. Next, you have active control and mastery. Children actively control the playing out of a trauma event that had been experienced passively. They can change the ending of the re-experiencing to one of mastery of the trauma, resulting in a cognitive restructuring of the experience. Next is piecemeal assimilation by repetition. Children will typically reenact the trauma over and over again in their play, and if all goes well, this ultimately results in successful processing and resolution. Thus, repetition allows for a slow-paced healing process. Freud termed this process of habituation the repetition compulsion. By playing out the trauma in the form of a story, the child can form a coherent narrative from the often fragmented memories elicited by the trauma and place these within a larger context rather than framing the trauma in as a personalized attack. The concrete play materials facilitate the recall of the vivid sensory details of the trauma, which tend to be stored in right hemisphere of the brain. Pretend play can allow children enough psychological distance from the reenacted trauma to prevent them from being overwhelmed by the accompanying negative affect. The positive affects resulting from the play can help to balance any negative emotions felt by the child. The seventh major therapeutic power of play are positive emotions. A positive emotional experience can be a healing force that precipitates change in psychotherapy. People at play experience joy, mirthfulness, excitement, interest, flow, and delight. The eighth major therapeutic factor of play is counter-conditioning of fears. Counter-conditioning refers to the reduction of an undesirable response to a stimulus through the introduction of a more desirable, often incompatible response. Counter-conditioning is usually combined with Wolff's systematic desensitization procedure by gradually exposing a client to a fear-producing situation while the client experiences a positive emotion incompatible with the fear, such as mirth, merriment, or a powerful mental image. The ninth therapeutic power of play is stress inoculation. The stress inoculation power of play is intended to help clients prepare themselves in advance to handle stressful events successfully and with a developmentally appropriate amount of anticipatory anxiety. The use of the term inoculation is based on the idea that a therapist is inoculating or preparing clients so they become resistant to the effects of stressors in a manner similar to how a vaccination works to make patients resistant to the effects of a particular disease. The basic rationale behind this strategy is the work of worrying hypothesis of Janis. When facing an upcoming stressful event, for example, surgery or separation from loved ones, people may engage in a mental rehearsal of what is likely to take place when they actually experience the event. Such preparatory work will, according to Janis, minimize reactions to the stressor, strengthen reality-based expectations about how to cope with the danger, and enable the individual to make plans for taking protective action against the event. Janice concluded that a moderate amount of worry works best. The 10th major therapeutic power of play is stress management. Play can be an excellent antidote to children's stress because it allows them to work through the stresses they encounter and emerge with a stronger self concept and renewed optimism about the future. As Erickson stated, to play it out is the most natural, self healing measure childhood offers. Or, in the words of an 8-year-old girl describing her play therapy experience, in here I turn myself inside out and give myself a shake, 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 and finally I get glad all over that I am me. The 11th major therapeutic power of play is the therapeutic relationship. The majority of therapists consider the therapeutic relationship to be the most important ingredient in successful therapy. Without the establishment of a helping relationship, no technique or strategy is likely to be effective. Meta-analytic studies have confirmed that the therapeutic relationship is related to positive outcome across diverse types and models of child treatment. After forming an initial alliance, the task of the therapist is to establish an ongoing relationship that motivates the client to continue to engage in the therapy tasks. The characteristics of the therapist that are frequently listed as desirable to the formation of a therapeutic relationship are warmth, caring, understanding, acceptance, respect, and trust. These traits reflect the qualities of a good interpersonal relationship in general. The 12th therapeutic power of play is attachment. Attachment refers to the affectional bond formed between infant and caregiver. All infants seek to form affective ties with their parents so as to meet their needs for physical and psychological safety. Attachment enhances the infant's chances of survival because it keeps the infant in close proximity to a stranger, to a stronger and wiser figure. In both infancy and adulthood, researchers have amply demonstrated that attachment security predicts individual differences in relationship functioning, affect regulation, and psychopathology. Play for interactions between parent and child that produce smiles and laughter are likely to increase feelings of attachment in the child. Indeed, Makobi asserted that intense, positive, affectively charged interactions between parent and infant help form the initial basis for bonding. The 13th therapeutic power of play is the sense of self. Everyone is motivated to gain a sense of personal identity, which includes those roles, attributes, behaviors, and associations we consider most important about ourselves. Self-psychologists believe the outcome of healthy development is a cohesive and integrated sense of self. Philosophers from Plato to Sartre have observed that people are most human, whole, free, and themselves when they play. According to philosopher Erich Fromm, a man's main task or a woman's main task in life is to give birth to himself or herself. Under the sense of self are several important processes. First is freedom. The realization of the self is the ultimate goal of child-centered play therapy. This humanistic non-directive approach gives the children freedom to think for themselves, to make their own decisions or choices, and to solve their own problems. By mirroring responses, the play therapist further promotes the child's self-awareness. Virginia Axline described the growth of the self in an autistic child in her famous case illustration of a child-centered play therapy entitled Dibs in Search of Self. The next process under sense of self, is imagination. In play, children imagine and play out different possible selves. As George Bernard Shaw once said, the imagination is the beginning of self-creation. First, one imagines what is desired, then the individual wills what is imagined, and at last, the individual creates what is willed. And last is primary process thinking. Margaret Lowenfield pioneered the use of sandplay therapy to help children become aware of their forgotten selves. By creating worlds in the sand, children re-established communication with their primary process thinking. These are concrete, emotion-laden, symbolic, and drive-dominated thought. The 14th therapeutic power of play is empathy. Empathy refers to the ability to take the perspective of others and imagine what they are thinking and feeling. The ability to empathize is an important part of social and emotional development, improving the quality of social relationships and promoting altruistic behaviors. The effects of a lack of empathy in humans can be seen all around us in wars, crimes, inequality, prejudice, and antisocial behavior. The determinants of empathy include both internal neurological factors and external environmental factors. A key to understanding how empathy is fostered neurologically is the action of mirror neurons. Discovered in primates in the 1990s, mirror neurons are a set of neurons in the premotor area of the brain that are activated not only when performing an action oneself, but also while observing someone else performing that action. It is believed mirror neurons increase an individual's ability to understand the behaviors of others, an important skill in social species such as humans. It has also been observed that children with autism have abnormally low activation in the premotor area of the brain that contains the mirror neurons system while initiating and observing emotions. The lower the activation, the greater the social impairment. Still under empathy, some of the processes in play are role-playing. Role-play occurs when play therapists transform during pretend play into people or objects other than themselves, as indicated by the verbal or motoric enactments of their perceptions of the role. There is evidence that role-playing promotes perspective taking, imagining the thoughts and feelings of others, which in turn promotes the development of empathic and altruistic behaviors. Next is storytelling. Stories facilitate children's understanding of the thoughts, feelings, and motives of others. Thus, by listening to stories, children develop empathy and compassion for others. According to Manny, it is the imaginative act of the listener or reader translating the words on the page into thoughts and feelings that enables them to see the world through the character's eyes and feel their feelings. The recognition that humans share common bonds, goals, and aspirations also facilitates empathy. If play therapists regularly place themselves in the shoes of different characters and experience empathy for them, this recurring behavior cannot but help but to create more empathic personality in children. The 15th therapeutic power of play is creative problem solving. Studies have shown that play facilitates divergent thinking ability, flexibility in problem solving requiring insight, ability to think of alternative coping strategies for daily problems, ability to understand the emotions of others, and aspects of general adjustment. The 16th therapeutic power of play is resiliency. Resiliency refers to those skills, attributes, and abilities that enable individuals to adapt successfully to hardships, difficulties, and challenges. Resilient children have high self-efficacy, strong interpersonal skills, above average intelligence, and good problem-solving skills. Play behaviors promote resilience in the following ways. First is through creative problem solving. Resiliency requires the ability to think flexibly and creatively rather than rigidly in response to changing situational demands, especially stressful environments or encounters. For at least 50 years, scholars from psychology, philosophy, and psychotherapy have posited a link between play and creative responses to the environment. Second, training for the unexpected. Play has the quality of uncertainty. The course of play cannot be determined in advance, nor can the results be attained beforehand. Thus, play functions to increase the versatility of one's cognitive and emotional responses to unexpected events in which one experiences a sudden loss of control. To obtain this training for the unexpected, both animals and humans actively seek and create unexpected situations in play. These unexpected events often involve danger or risks such as self-handicapping play, deliberately restricting control over one's movements, or putting oneself in dangerous situations, for example, battle with monsters, war, or death and injury. Although these themes are of universal concern to children, many adults avoid talking about them and, in the process, increase the anxiety of children and undermine their resiliency. In the safe environment of play, confronting these dangerous situations gives one the opportunity to experiment with a variety of novel and possible adaptive responses. With practice in play, these responses become more accessible when facing life's unexpected and dangerous situations. In play, the therapist is able to generate a repertoire of positive behaviors that are adaptive in dealing with stressful events. Resiliency is also fostered by the many positive emotions one experiences in play. This builds up an inner well of good feelings that can be drawn upon to cope with the negative emotions triggered by daily life stresses. Numerous studies have shown positive emotions have a mitigating effect on subsequent negative experiences. Positive emotions seem to build a broad range of coping responses, allowing individuals greater flexibility in using such responses to cope with stress and adversity. Research has already documented that people who are particularly adept at self generating positive emotions are more likely to be resilient. And then, humor is also part of this. The emotions of mirth and delight aroused by humor are particularly helpful because they are incompatible with feelings of stress. A sense of humor has been identified as one of the attributes of protective factors in resilient youth. Research on resilience indicates that a sense of humor helps to stress proof children in conflict. By introducing a comic element into a stressful situation, one can obtain a temporary relief from tension. Indeed, gallows humor is a term used to describe the humorous treatment of a grave or dire situation. The 17th power of therapeutic power of play is it facilitates moral development. Morality comes from the Latin words morals, meaning customs, manners, or patterns of behavior that conform to the standards of the group. At every age, individuals are judged by how closely they conform to the group's standards, and they are labeled moral or immoral accordingly. Thus, moral development is related to the rules people have for their interactions with others. Jean Piaget was among the first psychologists whose works remain directly relevant to the contemporary theories of moral development. In his studies, he focused specifically on the moral lives of children, studying the way children play games in order to learn about their beliefs regarding right and wrong. So, part of the processes that take place in play are gameplay, and these facilitate moral development. Piaget argued that children's spontaneous rule-making in gameplay, deciding what is fair to all players in a game of marbles, for example, provides crucially important experience in the development of mature moral judgment. Such peer group experiences help the child to move away from the earlier stages of morality based on authority, where rules are seen as external, constraining forces arbitrarily imposed and enforced by powerful adult authority figures, to the concept of a morality based on the principles of mutual cooperation and consent among equals. In gameplay, children learn about fairness, equality, justice, creating and following rules, respecting oral contracts, and taking action against wrongdoers. Things that help children develop a sense of morality and ethical behavior. One of the most surprising findings from child development research is that children's basic emotions of morality appear to stem less from powerful discipline or lessons taught in Sunday school and more from social interactions with peers during the course of play. And then also, another process is role play. Through role play or pretending to be a doctor, teacher, or police officer, children are able to develop the capacity for empathy, the ability to see and experience things from another's perspective. This process enables the player to understand the motivations of others, adopt their perspective, and consider their needs. All of these insights foster the development of morality, such as an allocentric versus an egocentric orientation. The golden rule of most religions, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, asserts that the abilities of perspective taking and empathy are the basis for morality. The 18th therapeutic power of play is it facilitates accelerated psychological development. The power of play is significant in accelerating a child's psychological development through opportunities to practice and develop a multitude of skills. Lev Vygotsky proposed that children have a zone of proximal development or a range of tasks between those the children can handle independently and those they can master with the help of adults or more capable peers. Vygotsky also proposed that play creates the zone of proximal development of the child. In play, a child always behaves beyond his average age, above his daily behavior. In play, it is as though he were a head taller than himself. As in the focus of a magnifying glass, play contains all the developmental tendencies in a condensed form and is itself a major source of development. The 19th therapeutic power of play is the facilitation of self-regulation. Self-regulation or self-control refers to the ability to control one's thoughts, feelings, impulses, and behaviors. Self-control has been found to be positively related to both social and academic competence in children. On the other hand, problems with self-control are linked with the etiology and maintenance of a broad array of psychosocial problems, including crime and drug use. Unfortunately, studies have shown children's ability to regulate and control their behavior has decreased over the past 40 years. So, pretend play involves the use of make-believe and symbolism. When young children engage in imaginative play, they tend to be less impulsive and aggressive. Pretend play helps children put symbols between their impulses and actions. Rather than acting out their impulses, they can express them symbolically in pretend play. Also, during make-believe play, children engage in private speech. They talk to themselves about what they are doing and how they are feeling. This aids in establishing self-awareness and emotion regulation. There's also sociodramatic play. This collaborative dramatic play involves sustained, elaborate, imaginary play in which children make a plan, stay in character, and act out this alternate world for an extended period of time. In sociodramatic play, children have to subordinate themselves to the role they are acting. This often means acting against their own impulses and wishes. Self-control is also strengthened by coordinating one's role with the role of others to portray a coherent story. Social pretend play has proven particularly advantageous for impulsive children who are behind their peers in self-regulatory development. And finally, there's also gameplay. Games like Simon Says, Follow the Leader, Red Light, Green Light. The leader says red light to stop the children from what they are doing and green light for the children to go ahead and move. And statue. Children stand still like statues and hold their positions until the leader says go. help children develop control over their impulses and motor responses. Strategy games like chess and checkers strengthen children's executive functioning, or their ability to stop and think, plan ahead, consider alternate moves, and anticipate the consequences of their moves. The ability to relax is an important way to with stress. There are many different types of relaxing play, such as sand play, water play, clay play, finger painting, guided imagery, and the use of soft play objects, such as teddy bears and squishy balls. Then there is rough and tumble play. The research of Jack Pankseff and colleagues has found that frequent access to rough and tumble play reduces the impulsivity and hyperactivity of rats with frontal lobe damage. Accordingly, he suggests a regimen of social rough and tumble play might be one way to help children with ADHD control their impulsivity. The 20th therapeutic power of play involves the facilitation of self-esteem. The term self-esteem is used to describe a person's overall sense of self-worth or personal value. Self-esteem can involve a variety of beliefs about oneself, such as an appraisal of one's capabilities, competence, and achievements, and attractiveness to others. Self-esteem has been widely studied for over 30 years because of its broad influence on one's personality, behaviors, and motivations. Two of the many ways play boosts children's self-esteem are through the enhancement of their sense of power or control and self-efficacy. One of the biggest needs of children at every stage of development children have is the need to have a sense of personal power and control. Living in a world populated by adult giants, most children feel very little power over what happens in their lives. As a result, they may fight for control by engaging in power struggles or by acting out aggressively, or they may resign themselves to their roles of dependent helplessness. Free play provides children with opportunities to control body actions, ideas, objects, and relationships. Finally, the last therapeutic power of play is that it facilitates power and control. One of the biggest needs of children at every stage of development is to have a sense of personal power and control. Living in a world populated by adult giants, most children feel very little power over what happens in their lives. As a result, they may fight for control by engaging in power struggles or by acting out aggressively, or they may resign themselves to roles of dependent helplessness. Play is one aspect of their lives where children feel in control. They determine what and how to play, whether it is shaking a rattle, pretending to be a princess, or building a world in the sand. In play, children are the powerful giants towering over the miniature play objects. Free play provides children with opportunities to control body actions, ideas, objects, and relationships, and is limited only by their interests and imagination. Specific examples of empowerment play are playing with toys associated with extraordinary strength or abilities, such as superheroes, dinosaurs, dragons, fairies, witches, or goblins. Playing with aggressive play objects such as swords or guns. Rough and tumble play, and changing the rules of the game, and playing the role of doctor, teacher, or firefighter. The material from this lecture came from the book titled Handbook of Play Therapy by O'Connor, Schaefer, Braverman in 2016.